detective. Thrill me.
Thanks for joining us. The Canon Express continues. We've decided to dip into the Canon films one more time with their most high-profile offering, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. But before we get to that, I have watched absolutely nothing. The only thing of note I've done is I listened to a podcast series called Monster BTK, which was about the serial killer BTK. It was interesting. It's hard not to look at these things though and say, even though I'm a big true crime guy, that the media turns this guy into a monster. He's just a fucking loser, who...
Well, he was one that was constantly posting to fucking newspapers and shit, wasn't he?
He's just a fucking narcissistic loser who... I think the prosecution really stuck it to him by putting everything out in the case.
Yeah.
So all the photos of him in women's lingerie and stuff, they were basically trying to, like, showcase, look at this bloke. You know what I mean? So, but the media turns these guys into monsters. That's the angle that always comes up. It's always the media who pushes this.
Well, from what I know of him, he very clearly played. There was always an angle of him needing attention to it.
Yes. He constantly brought things up that the police weren't looking at him.
But left things at scenes or, quickly brought things up at scenes to continue to keep himself. And from what I know, like I recall reading an article in a magazine about what happened to, and it was very quickly after that he fucking started sending letters again to let everyone know he was still there.
Yeah. He'd been dormant for years.
Yeah.
And then an article was written about the 30th anniversary and he suddenly fucking pops his head up.
Yep.
But then he makes the most boneheaded fucking mistake in history. And again...
Wasn't it a floppy...
Can this be traced? Yeah. The police were like, no, it can't. So he sends it over.
Yeah.
Like, but again, I think it's that whole thing of like, I really want to get caught because I want to fucking sort of, puff my chest out and crap on about how sort of scary I was and that. But I think that when you actually find these people, you realise they're not actually that scary.
Yeah.
Like they're little men who, who
prey
on
put
vulnerable
everything
people.
In the circumstances in his favour to...
Yes, to make sure that they get away with it. So
he was a real piece of shit.
Yeah, real.
But I do recall, because it was one of those situations where I'd never actually heard of the guy until I read this article about what happened to him. Because he was posting everywhere, newspapers and everything, and then disappeared. And that was the first I'd heard of him. And then very soon after that, it was like, oh, he's fucking writing again.
Yes. And again, that's the interesting part.
Yeah.
You didn't, like, we didn't know that much about him.
No.
Like, he'd be loving the current climate.
Oh, of course.
Because they're
Seems
talking
like
about
that's
him.
What he was wanting the whole time.
Yeah. They're talking about him constantly.
Yeah.
So, look, it's an interesting deep dive into the whole case. Worth a listen, I think, if you're interested.
Yeah, I might have to have a listen to that.
That was it. What about you?
Yeah, I was pretty low key as well. 2 movies. I watched Once Upon a Time in the West.
Oh, is that the Sergio Leone?
Yeah, Sergio Leone. Yep. Our man Charlie Bronson.
How was Charlie? Better?
As I said to you, like I think I may have had some words that Charlie was also not a great actor. He actually is. He's in a role like this, you see how his kind of form works.
Yes. He had a lane.
Yeah.
He had a style, and I think he worked it pretty well.
And it was a case of, he'd made this shit for, Italian films and whatever for quite a while and had a profile, but Death Wish ended up being his biggest US kind of success, which was what kind of, motivated the cashing the checks for the sequels and whatnot.
Well, let's be honest, Jared. He had quite a bit of cred in foreign markets.
Yeah.
Over his career.
Westerns.
He is in 3 genuine classic movies. The Great Escape, Magnificent Seven, Dirty Dozen.
Yep.
And he had a box office. He had box office clout for a small portion of his final career.
Yeah. He's definitely got like a type.
Yes.
You don't get Charlie to play the verbose kind of
No, you keep him out of
the
that.
conversationalist, he's not playing Mel Gibson's role in Lethal Weapon or something like that. You know,
No.
he has a type. But when that type is what you need in the movie, it's pretty strong. And that's what the case was here. It's one of those westerns where it plays pretty well like an action sort of, well, not really an action. I find the westerns of the time, they don't necessarily explain as much. There's always like a mystery kind of, there's always a character that we don't know the backstory to or something like that. And that's the case here. There's a couple of sort of things like that where there's mysterious characters but it rolls along pretty nicely. It goes for 2.5 hours, but it rolls along pretty nicely. Bronson is good. He's got a mysterious backstory. When you get the payoff to that, it's actually really fucking emotionally. I mean, this scene only goes for about 2 minutes where you get the payoff, but this scene is fucking, it hits big time. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Recommend?
I thought it was very good. Yeah. And the other one I checked out was Found. Now this is an interesting one because it popped up in an article on Bloody Disgusting about coming of age movies that are set in horror settings or slasher settings. So basically, this one's the coming of age story, and this isn't a spoiler because the movie is marketed as this, and it's the first line of the movie is explaining this. The coming of age, the character that is coming of age, has found out by sneaking into his brother's room and checking out his music collection and his VHS collection and whatever. That his brother's a serial killer.
Okay.
He basically finds a head in a bowling ball bag.
Oh, okay.
And the start of it is kind of like, Stand By Me sort of style where we get the narration over the top about, oh yeah, this is the 5th different head or whatever I've seen in this bag. And it's a really interesting setup.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a real downside in it. I believe the budget for the movie was $8,000.
$8,000.
So it's fucking micro budget.
Yeah.
But it's very impactful. It's got a lot of scenes. There's when you're making it for $8,000, there's some scenes that look amateurish. There's some acting in there that is not up to scratch. But the two brothers, the guys that play the two brothers, both of whom I don't think have really done anything else, they're both pretty good. And there's some ways that it goes where you're like, this is a fucking really interesting way to explore some of the themes. Obviously, are like the impact that the violence in movies has on real life and whatever.
How old's this movie?
2012, I think.
Yeah, is it easy to find?
Tubi. I found it on Tubi with a flight on top of that. But,
so the likelihood of me finding it on Tubi here.
I think it is on Tubi here.
Okay, well,
but
I'll have a look while you continue to talk.
2 years later, they actually made. There's a movie that the kid finds. There's a movie that he finds at the video store that he can't hire, but he finds it in his brother's collection. They ended up making that movie 2 years later. Like the movie within a movie, they made it as like a side project. I haven't watched that. I've heard that one's a little disturbing, and based on what you see in this movie, I think it probably is. But yeah, it's not a complete success, but I think it's a worthwhile viewing.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was an interesting sort of way to go about it. It sort of breaks out into horror by the end, and kind of loses a little bit of the coming of age for me, but it does, throughout the kind of first hour, it does explore a couple of interesting ideas about it. So,
yeah, it's on Tubi.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Okay.
But yes, the budget constraints are very clear.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, interesting.
I might check that out.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. All right, let's take a break. Here's the trailer for 1987 Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
The countdown has begun.
Can we listen on launch?
The world is on the brink.
Prepare to counterattack.
And only one man can save us now.
What a scoop! Effective immediately, I'm going to rid our planet of all nuclear weapons.
But the greatest threat to Superman is Lex Luthor.
You'd risk worldwide nuclear war for your own personal financial gain.
Do you know what I can do with a single strand of Superman's hair?
You can make a toupee that flies.
Let's just keep your IQ a family secret, okay?
Okay.
He's created a being more powerful than the Man of Steel.
Well, smarter than I thought. You'll pierce his skin. Dance on his grave.
What are you doing back in Metropolis?
The dude of steel. Where are you gonna get it?
Is that adorable?
Christopher Reeve, Gene Hackman, Jackie Cooper, John Cryer, with Mariel Hemingway and Margot Kidder
Clark? Clark, things aren't that bad. Clark, stop!
as Lois Lane. Superman 4, his greatest adventure, the quest for peace.
Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, from 1987, directed by Sidney J. Furie, who directed Iron Eagle. It's produced by Yoram Globus and Menem Golan, who produced Over the Top. The screenplay was by Lawrence Koner, who wrote Mercury Rising, and Mark Rosenthal, who wrote Sometimes They Come Back. The story is by Koner and Rosenthal and Christopher Reeve, and the characters are created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. It stars Christopher Reeve as Superman/Clark Kent, Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, Jackie Cooper as Perry White, Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, and Muriel Hemingway as Lacey Warfield. The budget was $17 million, and the box office was $30 million worldwide. In Christopher Reeve's autobiography, Still Me, Reeve only refers to Superman 4 in this one sentence. The less said about Superman 4, the better. That's not
Thanks, Christopher.
good. That's not good.
Thankfully, Adam, we've got 20 odd pages of it in another book.
I know. I'm not going to lie. I can't wait to read that. I really can't. Okay. Although the stuff about like the message is admirable about nuclear, weapons and, peace and stuff, it's just so sort of ham-fisted with plot ideas. The effects are terrible. It's cheap to look at. And they don't give the characters anything to do. Like, Christopher Reeve is still good. I still love him as Superman and Clark Kent. I think he is the best one of all of them.
Yep.
And Gene Hackman, I mean, fuck, if this guy wasn't there, this movie wouldn't be worth fucking watching at all. His charisma and shit is fully on display, like always. Like, he's really, really good as Lex Luthor. And it just sucks that he kind of gets shafted. Like, he's just not in it enough.
Yep.
It's the lowest ebb of the Superman franchise by far. I still gave it 1.5.
Yeah.
I still gave it 1.5.
Yeah, fair. So, obviously, we've been watching a few Canon films lately because of the purchase of the books, about going through them and wanting to kind of read and watch at the same time, whatever. And that's been a fun experience. Even with the bad movies, you get a bit of the backstory and you have a good time. This one was it was a sad watch. Adam, because it's kind of like, it's a kick in the teeth because I love DC Comics. The canon stuff was fun, but there's no fun in the movie.
This is canon in the death throes.
Yeah, this is canon in the death throes. It's that Superman series in the death throes. It's watching Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman still produce what you loved about the characters in the first couple of movies,
but in just shit.
Just in thankless efforts. Really, like, it's a tough watch. And even someone like John Cryer, I know this role for him is, some people fucking hate it.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to you, this was one of those ones where one of the things I love about the DC I think DC kind of did it first, but Marvel is also doing it too now. Is bringing people back to reprise things that could have been done better or play a different character that's related to that role. So obviously he came back and played Lex Luthor in Supergirl.
Yeah.
And was pretty well received for that.
Yeah. And look, John Cryer's a good actor.
Yeah, which I always
he's
like.
He's just given
because,
fuck all to do.
Yeah, it puts a positive spin on things that, we don't look back on this and go, oh, fuck. There's always like a bit of an afterglow now when DC Studios does that. And like I said, I love that Marvel's done that now. With some of the multiverse stuff, especially with the last Deadpool and Wolverine, they kind of leaned on that sort of stuff pretty heavily. So it's not all bad, but it is just there's so many scenes where you just watch it and you just like, I felt fucking defeated at it when I was watching it. Like,
it's
it was
like
just
I'd been
sad.
fucking smacked around the head for a while.
So yeah, it's pretty much what you said. It's flat. Anything that could be fun, like the action might be the worst thing about the movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's really bad.
Yeah, so it's all kind of a real struggle. I was at a 1.5 as well.
Okay. Likes. Reeve is the best Superman.
Yes.
But he's an even better Clark Kent.
Yeah,
His
definitely.
Clark Kent work is really, really good. He kind of encapsulates the nerdy, klutzy kind of Clark Kent who then just happens, like when he changes into Superman, he plays up the Clark Kent angle, and there's nothing better than that in the scene when he's in the gym.
Oh, that's
it's
awesome.
fucking golden.
Yeah,
like it's really, really cool.
He plays up the goofiness.
The
like,
slapsticks
really, really
in play, but then he just picks up the weights with that bloke and just goes poof and just drops them on him.
Yeah,
picks up a fucking weight of like 200 keg and just throws it on the guy.
There definitely wasn't enough of that, and there was an opportunity for it because you see he's supposed to be going on dates and things like that. But yeah, that's where you really appreciate. That's what I was talking about, like the fun stuff of the movie. Like that's where you remember how good he was as Superman.
Yes, he was. He was really good.
And so even though we got two movies that are pretty good, two that are not so great, you just appreciate what he was able to do over that stretch.
And there's always sadness tinged with seeing him. Because
a little bit.
He got paralysed, in the early 90s?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And died in 2004.
Mm.
And, it sort of sucks to see that because he was really good in this role.
And the best, I reckon, outside the gym, which is fun, the best scene in the movie is, and sounds so silly to say, but for me, the best scene in the movie is when he's on the farm in Smallville. Yeah. And you get Clark Kent and you get Reeve being able to be that.
Yeah.
And just that little interaction, you get a little bit of that, I've got to not hit this baseball, but then fuck it, now I'm going to smack it out of the park.
Yeah.
But his interaction with the guy kind of gives you that Superman's values. There's a hint of sadness because you get the sense that, obviously his parents have died.
Yes.
I just thought that was the only part for that couple of minutes. I was like, oh, here's a little bit of the magic of Superman.
Yeah. Some of it was there.
Yeah. Also, the other part, the theme always hits.
It does. There's something cheap about it.
Well, there's something cheap about it.
It's not John Williams, for starters.
But
I don't think.
It does hit. I thought it was John Williams.
I don't think it is. Something about it sounded pretty fucking tinny to me.
Well, I actually thought the music overall was one of the only things that fit with the rest of the series.
Well, I guess it's hard to fuck that up because the theme is iconic.
Yeah.
And even if it wasn't John Williams, if you can get it reasonably right within a big orchestra, which is what they had, it sounded okay. Like, it does always hit, yes. It is a really great theme.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you close your eyes in the credit sequence, I don't think it sounds
Superman
cheap.
1.
Yeah, if you close your eyes.
Then I opened them and I went, oh,
you opened them and saw the credits. Like, fucking hell. This is not what I was here for.
Oh, guys, please. Next one for me, Gene Hackman.
Yep.
Just
similar feeling to Reeve, right? Like,
yeah, he still breathes life into it. These really good actors are always capable of this.
Yes.
Even when they're not at their best. But I think that shows the professionalism of them. This is shit, and he would have known that, right? Yeah. But he still gives a credible performance, and is someone that you wanted to see. I'm going to throw this out there, and I'll be very interested to see what we talk about a little bit later on about the longer cut.
Mm.
But I kind of felt like I could have done with more of Mariel Hemingway.
Yes.
She had a bubbly personality. She seemed like a
did.
nice
Another
fit
good
for the
player.
material, decent actress.
Also, her dad was like the character again. The character wasn't strong, but it was clear the dad was a good actor.
Yes, absolutely. So a bit more of that would have been good. Like I would have liked to have seen her and Clark sort of get more
Getting
of a
on
romance
those date
going on.
scenes that they were talking about. Like
I just feel like once again we sort of took a good actress and a good performer and sort of left them swinging in the breeze.
yeah, and by extension, we lose some of the shit that was good.
Yes.
We lose some of Christopher Reeve doing the Clark Kent. You know, we've spoken about Batman at length. Obviously, I'm a Batman guy. That's my go-to superhero.
Mm-hmm.
But Superman's similar in that, you know, when you get the screen adaptations or the cartoons or whatever, there's the two personalities.
Yes.
And if you can kind of get a bit of that going, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
You know, I've said a few times I think Ben Affleck would have been a fucking great Bruce Wayne in the right circumstances. He didn't get the right circumstances. I love Christian Bale, but I don't think his Bruce Wayne was great. I didn't love the Bruce
it wasn't
Wayne in
as
that.
strong.
You know,
His Batman was more where they were aiming it.
Yeah, and his you know, I've spoken about my love for Kevin Conroy because he's, you know, he only had to do the voice, but the fucking shades between the two characters is perfect. I think you nailed it. Christopher Reeve is the one that got that. Like his Clark is so good.
Because we didn't
His
get
Clark
that.
is, I mean, his Superman just has to be just a stoic.
Yeah.
You don't need much out of Superman because his Clark is so fucking good.
Yeah.
You know, like.
But we didn't get that from Brandon Routh. We didn't get that from Henry Cavill.
No, that's right.
We just didn't get it. But it wasn't. But it was also the material was a different shade, maybe.
And so to hear that there was, you know, or to see in the movie that there was clearly stuff cut out that they were supposed to be going out on the town on dates and things like that. That we missed some of that. It's a kick in the guts. That's why that's one of the reasons it was a tough watch. It was more of a downer than a good old canon. You can always have a laugh. I was more like, fuck you guys.
You really screwed this.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the Daily Planet being kind of turned into a tabloid.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting one. It just wasn't fully fleshed, Jared.
Nothing was, Adam. You don't need to say that anymore. Nothing was.
So they kind of left that again hanging. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it would have been cool to kind of put Lois and Clark in this situation where they're forced to go out and fucking muck rake and do all this kind of shit.
Yep.
Like, but it didn't
go
even,
against the ethics
of what they were about. Perry could have been fired. You know, like we could have gone somewhere with it. It just seemed to be a decent idea that just didn't pan out. And again, I would like to see if there was more.
Yes. Yep. The scene, and this comes back to exactly what we've just been saying. We're repeating the same thing over and over. But the double date scene, it's not a success, but it's fun. And that's the kind of shit that you want to see.
It is fun.
Christopher Reeve doing.
Agreed. It's saved by him.
Yeah.
But it also falls into a trap that the Superman films, certainly in that era, tended to fall into. And I'll get to it, but the constant changing back and forth as kind of like this comedic thing. Starts out reasonably humorous, but when you bang it out like 4 times, it loses a bit of its punch.
So as far as I know, I could be wrong here, but I can't remember in his series necessarily being on a double date.
No,
where that's the case.
That was different, and that worked a little bit better.
That's where I think the fun is in this one, and you get a couple of specific moments of like, you know, when Clark rolls in, and you see Mariel Hemingway again, 2 good actors.
Yeah.
You see her get kind of
excited.
She gets excited that Clark's here, and he goes, "Hey, can you break a 20?"
That's right.
I started giggling.
Yeah, that's right.
I was just like, it's so fucking charming. And she's like, you know, she doesn't overplay it, like, she doesn't fucking pull her face or whatever. She's like, sure, I can break a 20.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
She likes this guy. She continues playing it. Then he gets, you know, caught up on the
bloody trolley, hasn't he?
Yeah, and just before that, before he walks out, Lois tells him, she's got a new dress. You got to notice the dress. Yeah. And he turns around and he goes, hey, neat dress. And then fucking walks out. I'm like, this is what we needed.
It's more comedic.
Yeah.
And it kind of works.
It does work. Like I said, it's not a complete success. And I mentioned to you, I watched the commentary with Mark Rosenthal. So one of the writers of it. He was filthy. Like he was actually he was quite positive, but from the second that the movie opens and you see the credits, he's like, "Well, straight away we know we're not at Superman 1. This looks terrible." Blah blah blah. But he talks about that scene and he's like, disappointed. He's more disappointed in the setting of it. He's like, it needs to be quicker, it needs to be punchier, it needs to be Clark is out the door and Superman is in straight away.
Yeah.
Whereas there's too long in between it and things like that. But he brings up the fact that that's it was what we're talking about. That's what Reeve was so good at, and that's what breaks some of the tension and stuff with Superman. This is the difference with this is why, as much as I think Henry Cavill was well suited as Superman in some parts, he could never match up Reeves because Zack Snyder's stuff was so dark. You didn't get.
Yes.
I mean, when did Cavill get to fucking trip over himself and ask, can you break a 20 and things like He didn't get to do that. And that's why he'll never be Christopher Reeve.
No, that's right. Because again,
the character needs a bit of that.
Well, it juxtaposed Superman's stoicness against Clark's fucking buffoonery. And to me, that's the perfect angle that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Clark's like an idiot.
Yes. Well, Reeve got it it's not just the glasses.
Yes.
It's the glasses and
But I'm also a bit of I've always got my foot in my mouth and I'm always fumbling around.
They overplayed it in the aerobic scene where everyone's going up and he's going down and everyone's going left and he's going right. But that's the right spirit of it.
Yes, agreed. And look, in a movie like this where there's not a lot of fun to be had, there's not a lot of enjoyable moments, that's a pretty enjoyable moment.
It probably elevates that material.
Correct.
Let's do a bit of slapstick kind of work, basically.
I like the idea of the strand of Superman's hair. I actually thought that was cool because you know what? That's the sort of thing that hasn't popped out yet.
Again,
within
pros
that
and
series.
cons.
Yeah,
it's the right idea.
I was concerned we were going to go back to Kryptonite.
Yeah, it's the right idea, but there's a real problem with it. That gets.
I'm sure.
We'll come back to it.
Come back to that, yeah. I'm sure it's certainly not foolproof.
No, it's not, of course.
But I like the fact that it wasn't let's make a ray gun with fucking kryptonite. Which seemed to be the Superman fallback is always a piece of kryptonite.
Yes, always.
So I kind of like that. We build a adversary who's stronger.
Yep. Yeah,
right?
I get it.
Look, there wasn't a lot else here.
No, I was done. That was it for me. I think we've been very positive.
Nuclear Man scratching Superman's neck and weakening him.
Yeah.
Again, something slightly different. I'm assuming it's the nuclear fucking shit that goes into his body, the radiation that fucks him up.
That's when you actually do need a bit of kryptonite, though, because that's his established kind of...
Yeah, I know, but at least it was something different.
yeah, I get it.
And I at least thought the final punch-up between Nuclear Man and Superman on the street was at least... It was smaller scale, but shit was blowing up.
Had to be,
things are flying around.
Couldn't afford anything else.
I know.
It should have just been fucking hand-to-hand.
They were fucking shaking one of those tins outside.
It should have just been my old favourite. I've brought it up a million times, but it should have just been Ronnie Piper and Keith David based on the budget that they had.
But at least, their practical effects, some interesting gags of, people getting levitated and fire department hoses getting... going off on their own and stuff.
Yeah,
there was explosions and stuff. It was practical.
You're going to be Han Solo on there because I thought that was shit.
At least it was more fucking enjoyable than their first fight, which I could not believe what I was seeing. I was absolutely fucking ropeable. When they first come to blows, I was like, is this what we're going with? So I was maybe I got soft. I got soft.
You softened up as the movie went along.
I softened up.
You were so desperate for a bit of entertainment.
I was trying to justify the 1.5 I gave it. That's it for me.
I can see what you're saying because it does get
I guess it's a comparison thing.
It goes
comparatively to the first one.
That.
So
I think
the
what
first one
happens
they
is
have is fucking
the
terrible.
other stuff is so bad that you've kind of convinced yourself that
This is
I
all
sort
right.
of enjoyed that part of it. But, yeah.
Have you got any other lines?
No, that was it. I tried really hard to
get
pump
through.
up DC material there. Adam.
Oh man, direction. It is so flat. Like
Workmanlike. So
Nah,
can we just briefly bring
not
up?
even that.
Can we briefly bring up that Reeve had say over directorial because of his basically, to get him back because he'd said he wouldn't play Superman again. To get him back, Cannon made his other film. Told him after they'd made it that they couldn't afford to advertise it.
Talk about screwing the bloke. I tell you what.
They let him obviously contribute to the story. I think he directed some second unit stuff, but they also gave him control over the directors. And
man.
look, Christopher did his part. So
Christopher went
Dick
looking
Donner-
for decent performance.
we spoke about Dick Donner. They'd approached Dick Donner. Dick Donner had just filmed The Goonies and Lady Hawk. Both, I like both of those movies.
Yes.
And was on his way to Lethal Weapon, so understandably said, fucking tell your story, Walken. So Christopher Reeve's preferred choice was Ron Howard.
That would have been, I mean, I said this before we came on air. He was on the ascent.
Yeah, that would have been a good pick.
He would have been perfect.
And the
I think.
second pick was Wes Craven.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Craven's, it wasn't his bread and butter.
No.
But it might have been something different.
Yeah.
That he had.
They butted heads.
He butted heads with Christopher.
So Cannon stepped in and settled on a journeyman.
Fuck off.
Cannon stepped in and settled on journeyman Sidney J. Fury.
Sidney seems to have got his fucking directorial chops from God only knows where, because
Yeah.
it is so flat. It doesn't even look bright.
Well,
And-
it's one of those cases where you want to give him some credit for the fact that they cut his budget in half.
yeah.
He couldn't do things he wanted to do, but then you
But
look
what he
at you
did
look
was
at
shit.
Yeah, well that's the thing. You look at people that get small budgets and how they work around them. I know Superman's a different beast because you got to deal with flying and you got to deal with laser eyes and stuff like that. But what Sidney produced was rubbish.
But this is the thing.
Is that fair?
That's fucking spot on. But
Sorry,
this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say in defence of Sydney. Apart from the fact that I just said he sucked. but
So you've basically just kicked the bloke in the balls and now you're going to help him up.
Yeah. Then I'm going to give him an ice pack. I'm not going to help him up.
Here's a bag of peas,
I'm going to
Sydney.
throw a bag
And
of
then I'll
peas at the
kick you in
guy
the
and say,
balls
put
again."
them on your fucking nutsack. But he would have been dealing with Golden and Globus, which would have even fucking Tarantino couldn't deal with those two dildos.
Yeah.
Like
So
nobody.
you're telling me someone says, Sydney, that's a bit flat. Should we go another take? Sydney looks over his shoulder and sees Golden Globus and says, fuck that.
packing up parts of the fucking set. He's like, oh shit, no, we gotta get.
No, let's go.
So in Sydney's defence, he would not have had autonomy. He
No.
would have been being fucking
would have been
pressured by
hamstrung.
these knobs
Yep.
the whole time.
Yes.
Right? And he would not have been given appropriate pre-production
Yeah.
work, I reckon,
Yep. And it's
to
not.
make this any good.
It's definitely not one of those cases where someone gets, it's not a pressure burst. It's a pressure burst pipes situation rather than pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah, exactly.
Situation,
Exactly.
like
and,
it's
and could you imagine? And Golden and Globus would have told this bloke, we cut your budget like a week out from fucking filming.
yeah.
Like, this is the kind of shit they were into pulling.
And so
I believe they
and-
did exactly that in Master of the Universe.
Yeah.
They just rocked up
They
and said,
cut it in
your,
half.
your budget's now gone.
So the budget was like supposed to be 30, which was
Even that was low for the Superman
well,
films.
what did we saw the budget. So I think the budgets went 55,
40,
40,
or something.
50,
it was.
something like that.
Then it was
35.
39 or something.
And then this one was supposed to be 30 and it was more like 16, 17. So it's not all his fault.
No. But what he produces is not good enough.
No.
It's as simple as that.
it's not. Yeah,
It's not good.
it would leave it.
I don't know where Sydney's at these days, but fuck, I'm hoping he's not making film,
I'm assuming he talks about Superman 4 about as much as Christopher Reeve did.
which is one line.
Yeah,
The effects all round are just piss poor.
shocking.
Shocking. Like the fact that whenever you see Superman flying towards the screen, it's all the colours are all washed out and shit. Like it just,
Adam,
of course, it stands out.
my son walked in while I was watching this, so obviously, we've watched a few things together. We watched the Marvel movies together when they come out in the cinemas. He essentially walked into the room and he goes, "Holy shit, what's that?" That's the worst special effects I've ever seen. Like, he's like, "What are you watching?" And I'm like, "This is Superman 4." And then we kind of had a bit of a chat about it. And then every time another effects shot had come on screen, I'll be like, "Come check this out.
Yeah.
This might be worse than the last one you saw."
This is like, again, to be fair to the people who worked as hard as they could on this, it's another budgetary issue. Like the fact that you haven't got the best people to make this stuff.
And some bowed out.
Yeah, they did.
Some saw the writing on the wall and said,
who had
"Nah."
worked on the previous films.
Yeah.
So affects people who had a background in doing this.
Yeah,
And doing
yeah.
it reasonably well under the circumstances. It's not like, now where your computers can do it all.
Yep.
So they would have been the best people for that job. They didn't turn up.
No, that's right. Silver lining, Adam. Both my kids basically walked out and said, "I'm never going to complain about special effects in a movie again."
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, "Yeah, hey."
There you go.
I was like, "Yeah, when you walk out of a Marvel movie and complain about, poor special effects on a floating head in Thor 4 or whatever, just
Not
remember
even close.
the good old days when this is what we got."
Yeah, it's like using your fax machine.
Yeah,
Even though you've got
exactly.
smartphones.
Yeah. So we've turned it into a positive. This is a good thing, Adam.
Yeah, all the colours are washed out. It just looks terrible.
Looks terrible.
Most of it
The
looks
colours
terrible.
with colours with the green screen don't.
There's like
it's
white,
like there's
like a border around him.
there's a border, but also the colours on Superman look fucking like faded and shit. Like it's just one of those situations where it doesn't even slightly match up.
No.
And there's not. I'll give it credit. There's a couple of sequences that are passable. Stuff like when they're in space, when the shots are, I'm assuming they're miniatures, and there's like stuff going on there. They're passable. But as soon as you chuck Christopher Reeve on the green screen,
Terrible.
it's terrible, and it continues throughout the whole movie. The worst one, well, not the worst one. I've probably got a few to mention, but my favourite green screen moment was when Nuclear Man and Superman are wrestling later on in the
they
movie.
fall off into. Do they fall off into space, or is it?
Well, they're in space, but there's one particular shot that's from above them, and you can clearly see them both shuffling their feet as they're stepping on the ground, but they're supposed to be fucking floating in the air. I was like, come on. Like, Jesus. What are we doing here? Yeah.
It's bad.
It's bad.
Really
it's
bad.
And it begins from second one. The credits are fucking horrendous.
They are. I didn't know what I was watching when it came on. I
It's
was
like you're
just
advertising.
Immediately like,
It's
what's
like
this?
you're almost advertising how little money you've got to spend on
Yeah,
the movie with
yeah.
your credits. Like, fucking keep it simple if that's what you like. It was so bad.
But again, it's the Golden Globus effect. Is it just don't worry about that shit. Just get this out.
Yeah.
Like, that's basically what this would have been.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not the way to do this.
Well, I think I already mentioned in the commentary, Mark Rosenthal, like, he's trying to be positive about certain aspects of the film, but he's not pulling punches. And the first thing he says is like, you see the credits, and the first thing he says is like, well, you see this, and we're not watching Superman 1. Like,
Yeah.
Basically, these are awful.
So
he's not wrong.
And this is where the sadness comes in.
Yeah.
That we
Yeah.
cut the budget to such an extent. We put the film in what would basically have just been a fucking high pressure situation.
Yeah,
to get
it puts you in a
to put
negative mood
something
from the get go.
out.
Because I was like I said, I was on a high watching these canon movies, Adam. I was in the sort of find something good headspace about these things. I was very much willing to look at Superman and say I love Christopher Reeve as the character so much that I'm going to get something good out of this.
Yeah.
And the second I saw them, my mood fucking turned.
Oh.
I was filthy.
But also, and I think, you know, we've spoken about this already, so this is going to come up a lot, but the love triangle kind of aspect that they're kind of pushing, I don't even know if you'd call it a love triangle, because you've got Lois and you've got Lacey.
Well, it is. It's kind of supposed to be, but...
But it just never feels fully fleshed. And
No.
again, there's minutes missing.
45.
So
Adam.
whether
There's another
There's
third.
another movie.
There's another, you know, we've basically got two-thirds of the movie.
So what we have is something where that stuff's not good enough, like character-wise, to give you anything to latch onto.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yep.
okay, the next thing I expect to latch onto is action, like the sequences.
Yes.
They're so bad that I've got nothing to fucking grab.
I'm putting it out there.
I'm clutching in the air. Jesus.
Yeah. You're clutching like fucking Nuclear Man kind of reaching whatever he was doing.
Or at one point, Superman clutching at Nuclear Man's ankles.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned that you were dazzled by one action sequence there, Adam. But
Yeah.
the action might be the worst thing about the movie.
I think that it's so pedestrian and has no real standout moments that everything's forgettable.
Yeah,
Like,
everything's forgettable.
I think what they might have been aiming for is Nuclear Man is kind of like you'll remember Nuclear Man, right? Because he's
For all
Superman's
the wrong
adversary.
reasons, Adam.
But
Like,
I came away from this saying these fucking villains were awful.
yeah, terrible.
Like they
So-
really screwed the villains.
Yeah. And it's like, if you're going to cut out so much plot, aren't you relying on the action?
Yeah.
And the action is just so... I'm going to skip to this because it was at the back end of my notes, but we're talking about it. The climax, the fight on the moon is woeful. And it's the worst. It might be the worst action scene in the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's fucking woeful. It is shot all in slow-mo. All it is these two guys kind of lurching and fucking. It's so bad. There's nothing to like about that scene on the moon. Am I wrong? Am I wrong, or
No,
am
you're
I being
spot
harsh?
on. Especially when he jams Superman into the fucking ground.
Yeah.
Covers him over with some moon dust. What?
Yeah, it's like that might be the lowest point of the whole series.
And look. No, I think the worst action scene is that ridiculous thing with the train.
Okay, yeah,
That
yeah.
it just comes out of fucking nowhere. It lasts maybe
Yeah.
a minute, and all he
Well,
does is just step on the train.
That was one of the cuts. Apparently, there was supposed to be a lot of special effects shots of Superman in the tunnel and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
So that explains that too.
Thank you, fellas.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thank you for fucking chopping the ring hole out of something so I can't even understand it. And I hate it.
Yeah. Thanks for chopping so
Jesus.
much of this shit out. The basic plot points don't make sense. That
And look,
action sequences are,
I'm going to say
a
this.
skeleton of what they
I'm
were
going to say
supposed
this.
to
And don't get me wrong, I love Canon. I love
be.
Canon.
Not tonight, you don't.
No, I love Canon. Like, I love that sort of fun element
You
that
love
you get
Golden
from
like
Canon.
a brother.
But I said this to you earlier on. Those two guys had no fucking business running a movie studio.
No.
They had no fucking concept of how they're supposed to be run properly. They were just two fucking idiots who somehow got somewhere in the industry.
Well, I'll
And
put
it's
it.
no surprise that the 1980s is when they were at their peak.
So I'll put it this way: if it like summing up what they're remembered for, it feels like there was links in the chain missing.
Yes.
So people talk about how, in a way, they did revolutionize parts of the industry because they were fucking great at selling a movie before they had anything other than a fucking title, a star, whatever. They went out and sold those movies and made money based on here's what it's going to be.
But that's what's
So they
commonly
kinda
known
brought
as
that
fucking
around.
flim
Are you
flammery.
talking? You're saying they're fucking snake oil?
Exactly. That's what snake oil people used to do back in the day. Like,
Well,
it's the same thing.
example was they had Bronson. They tied up Bronson after Death Wish 2?
Yeah, it must have been.
And they knew, okay, well, there's a market for this, so we've got a title. It's called 10 to Midnight. So they went out and they mocked up the poster of Bronson. with machine guns, 10 to midnight, selling it as like, it's Bronson
Another
going
sort of-
after terrorists.
Yes.
We ended up with some bloke running around in the nick and Bronson refusing to wrestle him.
Bronson being highly uncomfortable going near him.
Exactly. So, and funnily enough, that was actually a better Bronson movie from that era.
Jared, you are correct. They did do some of that stuff.
So
they sort of became like how you sold shit at Cannes.
they
and
did
things
that
like
well, and that seems to be, everyone says that was Globus. Globus was, they said he could fucking sell anything. Golan, it seems like he was the creative and had some merits there, but there was, it seems like the issue that there was no one to say, hey, pull it back a peg. Let's delay this by 6 months.
Yeah.
Let's polish the
tinker and
script.
polish it. Yeah.
Let's lower the budget, or let's
But when
find a way that, as you said, instead of walking in and saying we're chopping the budget in half, but we're still going to shoot all the special effects shots. That shit should have been chopped out of the script. We need less Superman flying because we don't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
And that's, it seems like there was links in the chain missing to say, yeah, we can still make this movie, but there's got to be
Agreed. There's links in the
alteration.
chains missing, but I think they were always chasing their tail financially. It was like it was a classic fucking Ponzi scheme. Right?
Well, early on it didn't seem that way.
Well,
It seemed like early on they had some ideas.
They were the smaller budgets. That's where they worked better.
But very
Smaller
quickly it became, the ambitions were grander than the money that they had, and then it became it felt like Ponzi scheme material. Because when you're selling a movie without actually having a movie, that's kind of the definition of a Ponzi scheme, isn't it? So we did get to that very quickly.
These guys were fucking this close to selling Amway.
yeah.
Do ya?
They were.
Right,
They were.
but you know what? Did you say it was Globus? No, Golan?
Golan was the creative.
The creative.
Golan,
He once spoke
Globus
to a
was the-
chimpanzee and told him how to fucking do
He did.
things.
He was
So-
also the one that, wasn't he also the one where the guy said, listen, this is going to cost a lot of money because we need a 100-piece orchestra.
Yeah.
And he said, you fucking idiot, we'll pay 50 and they'll play it twice. Like, this is the material that they're working with. Like,
Oh, fuck me. Honestly. All right. Okay. Lenny.
yeah, I get you. I
Lenny
get what you're saying.
Luther. Lenny Luther. Again, not John Crier's
Comes down
fault.
in the negative, yeah.
He just ends up doing nothing.
It's definitely not Cryer's fault.
No.
He's
He barely
proven
gets,
himself
He barely
as a good
gets
actor.
a decent go of it.
Well, from the get-go, his intro is fucking ridiculous. And we go into this comedic, like overly comedic work for him. Like that car scene is why is it there?
I don't know. And then
Yeah.
there's that ridiculous sequence where Nuclear Man makes him do.
Spin, yeah. And then he goes, "Hey, I'm breakdancing."
Oh,
I love it.
God, Jesus.
Yeah, John Cryer, thankless. We
Thankless
spoke
role for
about
John,
thankless
yeah.
tasks.
Thankless
John
task.
Cryer might have had the most thankless.
Just the nuclear disarmament stuff is just at odds with comic book material back then. I think now it might fit a little better.
I think it was in a.
Was it in a comic book?
Well, no, I think it's in a place where it's kind of in the thinking because the government, it's relevant to what governments were doing at the time, but it's at the same time when comic books were starting to twist. We had fucking Daredevil going a bit darker. We had the Dark Knight Returns turning back Batman into an old man who was fucking ultra violent, and so it was kind of like when comics were twisting, more adult and fucking really good storytelling. But Golan and Globus were going with the, oh well, it's the governments are talking about nuclear shit. And look, Christopher Reeve was involved in this because
we need to kick Reeve in
and
the ass
it
for
was
this too.
based on a real person. Apparently, the kid. There was a.
Was it?
Stop laughing.
I'm sorry.
That child died, Adam.
Oh fuck! I'm sorry. The actor or
No. They said
the
it was no.
actual kid?
They said there was an activist child in the Soviet Union that wrote a letter regarding
Superman?
nuclear weapons.
Sorry.
Stop talking. You're just making an ass of yourself.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well,
No,
I'm
but
surprised.
there was like an activist
I'm
child.
actually surprised by
That
this.
child died in a plane crash, which apparently kind of elevated the elevated the sort of story, and Christopher Reeve got hold of it and said, well, that might fit with Superman.
Okay.
He wasn't wrong, but as you kind of pointed out, like it's comic books were twisting darker at that point. Superman, they've gone back to, it's like they've gone back to the fucking 1930s with comic book storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. And that whole sequence where he runs around and he catches all the nuclear weapons, he puts them in a big net.
Big net.
He throws it out into the fucking wilderness. I didn't know what to make of that.
No, I didn't know what to make of it.
I didn't really know
like,
what we were doing there. And what we were doing is nothing.
And look, it feels like perhaps it is highlighted again as an issue of the 45 minutes that are cut out of this.
Potentially.
Because there's other stuff around it that might have made that a lesser plot point. But now that becomes really big because there's all this other shit that's missing.
So if the 45 minutes includes some stuff more about the kid, because the kid comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Once again, I wrote a letter.
Oh, I don't know why the kid was upset. Wait, was that something that was cut out? Because the kid turns up and they're like, Superman's fucked him over.
Superman told him to fucking jack off. That's the headline. And the
Superman treats young child like Charles Bronson treats someone with a jerk-off machine.
Ask him a lot of questions that he thinks are inappropriate, but they're a bit more on the PG side.
Yeah, so that seemed like a victim of
kid
that.
element. The reason why I'm laughing about the kid element, and I'm very surprised that it was actually some reality based.
And walking back giggling at a person that actually died.
Come on, that's your stick.
I get it.
That's your stick.
I can't deny that. I have done that sort of work before.
But that the child's inclusion in the movie and the plot is just, it's irrelevant. It's very irrelevant.
Yeah. You know what it screams? Steven Seagal. It screams, you got a message, and we're going to shoehorn it in.
Yeah, it does.
We're going to talk about,
And Christopher...
It screams Steven Seagal hijacking his Saturday Night Live segment about Enron.
It's like Christopher needed to get the sort of just shut up.
No. So this is one of the ones that I can't judge until I see the 45 minutes.
I need to see the 45. Because if the 45 tightens some of that up...
and puts work around that makes that like a more of a subplot.
Maybe, okay, we see where this was supposed to go.
Yeah.
Because what we seem to have is essentially a truncated version of what they made.
Yeah.
So that could potentially change things. That's why we need to get our hands on this 45 minutes, Jared.
Well, like I said, I've got that 13 disc box in there that's like Superman 1 to 4, and then tacks on Superman Returns, and it's 13 discs, and everything has multiple discs, but I'm pretty sure Superman 4 only has one. So
yeah, but what else could possibly be on that disc?
It might be in there. If not, I'll purchase a Blu-ray. If Kino Lorber's whipped it together, I'll buy it.
I'm looking this up later.
Yeah, we'll get on it.
Nuclear Man. Everything about Nuclear Man is just tragic. It's shocking. The mullet, the fucking long fingernails, the ridiculous costume he's wearing.
Yes.
And Mark Pillow. I mean, if I want to see a guy gyrating around with his cock out in a darkened club, I'll hire Mark Pillow.
No, well, I've heard you've already attended such fairs. Had your hair swept back by
the Channel 7 chopper. That brings me fucking memories that I don't like. That's the kind of that I go to a dark place there, Jared, because that was when I looked at my mate and said, "But we've got good personalities."
Yeah, we're nice blokes. That'll get us a long way tonight.
Honestly, it was like a fucking sack of pennies.
Yeah,
holy shit!
That's where you expect to see Nuclear Man.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I expect to find Mark Pillow at, but I found him on screen. I wish I hadn't.
Well, I tell you, like, It makes me appreciate the current climate where instead of giving Chippendales jobs as superheroes, we just take respected actors and pump them full of HGH.
Exactly.
That seems like the better approach.
And then what we do is we say we're clean.
Yeah,
All of us.
exactly.
It's
Yeah, all
so
natural.
mate.
All
It's
natural. I just ate turkey sangers for. I just ate turkey sangers for 6 weeks and look at it. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that's the better approach because when you ask them to talk, it doesn't go pear shaped.
But aren't they using Gene Hackman's voice with him?
Yeah, they were using Gene Hackman's voice, but
Fuck.
even then, we couldn't. I mean, the guy couldn't growl convincingly.
I know.
Look, it's one of those cases where I don't necessarily. I'm not going to kick him so much because it's one of those opportunities where anyone gets offered that. If you're waving your dick around at idiots with sacks of beers on their belt in an English nightclub, Adam, you get offered a role in Superman 4, you fucking say, of course.
Yeah, of course
So
I do.
I don't blame him, but when you're an audience member, you're just watching this 90-minute story, this guy's expected to produce something for you, it doesn't cut it. It's unacceptable.
Definitely unacceptable. And look, you hire an actor.
Correct.
You don't hire someone who's fucking cocked.
I mean, back in those days, it was easier to fucking get on the roids and have no one ask questions about it, wasn't it?
Yeah. You don't choose the guy by size of dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hire an actor.
Yes. You
Who
get a
knows how to
50-year-old
do it.
Hugh Jackman who's
It's
more
like
chiseled than he's ever been.
And then tries to tell us, I just did some working out. Like I work work out like twice a day,
Yeah.
and I
You-
eat fucking.
You did the work, but fucking, I mean, chicken doesn't do that.
What sort of chickens were
Yeah,
they?
what chicken?
Like fuck
He
off,
was
Hugh.
eating
Like,
fucking nuclear chicken to get that big.
it's like, you know what, Hugh? Fuck off. Be up front and just say I'm on the gear.
I'm waiting for the first person to come out and do that. Alan Richardson doesn't count because he tried to pass it off.
Oh, has he come out now? Sees on
I
the
think
gear?
he's pretty much said he's taken hormones, but then you remember when he had that fucking garbled interview where he was like, oh, I'd worked out so hard that I'd beaten all the testosterone out of my body, so I had to inject some more.
Yeah.
Alan.
Yeah. Alan, what in the world are you trying to peddle?
So at least you've been honest, but you've tried to kind of get away with it before you had to be
Well,
honest.
what happens is you beat the testosterone out of yourself.
Yes.
And then what you do is you inject it into your ass.
yeah, that's right.
At weekly intervals,
Yep.
I believe. Like, come on, guys. Fucking hell.
Yeah. I don't care. Just I want to hear how you did it. I'm genuinely interested on how you did
I've
it.
still
I don't
got
care that you
respect
took
for you.
You're not competing in the Olympics. You're acting. Like that's method.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Method acting.
I'm playing a meathead, so I fucking injected HGH for 6 months.
Or I'm playing a damaged war veteran like Sylvester Stallone. So what I better do is get bigger than I've ever fucking been.
Correct. When I'm 70, I'm bigger. When I'm 70, I have more muscle mass than I've ever had in my life. That's just that's the circle of life.
Yeah.
I'm led to believe.
I don't know. I've been to some old people's homes that would fucking disagree
I
with that.
can't wait,
Sylvester.
Adam. It appears that I'm just about to enter the prime of my life. I'm about to start putting on muscle mass that
Well,
I've
I
never
don't know
seen
about
before.
you, but I felt a tingling in my sack recently, which may mean that more testosterone
There
is
you
on
go.
its way.
It's just about to happen.
I can't wait to be fucking swollen as. Like, yeah, when I'm retired.
All I got to do is go and buy a couple of roast chickens from Costco for $6 and eat it, at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. apparently.
I can't wait to be fucking retired and getting my morning coffee looking like a fucking. Looking like I recently hit the gym.
I played a game of basketball the other night and went to bed feeling pretty fresh, and I woke up in the morning and couldn't move my fucking shoulder. so I can't wait for the day that I feel like that's just the oncoming explosion of muscle in my shoulder.
You know what? Yeah. If there is a morning that I don't feel like a fucking half-open pocket knife, I'm happy.
Yeah, exactly. You're feeling
See,
fresh.
this guy's looking all right.
So it's only 2 to 3 years before we kind of enter that phase.
Yeah. They reckon you bulk up at about 50.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you naturally just, turn into
Now,
the rock.
Jared, can you please explain to me, and maybe I missed something because I was watching it at fucking 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had to have it turned down.
Was that because you felt like a folded up pocket knife, so you just had to get up?
Yeah, I was fucking crunched up, but also I didn't want anyone to know I was watching it.
Yeah.
So, and I had the subtitles on.
Yes.
Classic,
as did I.
classically. What's the whole thing with the kryptonite piece in his little fucking
Couldn't tell
you. Okay.
Could not tell you.
What's that about?
Well, he gets it from the ship.
Did Rosenthal shed any light on that?
No, he didn't.
Even he doesn't even know.
Oh, fuck. Well, I think there's got to be something cut out about that because it comes up early and then it's 40 minutes before we see it again?
Well, it's near the end. Once he gets sick,
Yeah.
we see it again. And he's just sitting there
That
with
added to my confusion because it looked like he had the
piece
flu.
of kryptonite.
He had the flu, and then 2 minutes later he's back cradling the kryptonite looking like he's about 70 years old. And then the next time we see him, he's ready to punch on.
Yeah, so what's
Looking
that
fresh.
about?
He's just had an injection of HGH and he's back in the mix, ready to
You
go.
said the magic word, 70 years old. So he was obviously fucking up to his best. But I don't get any of that.
No, I don't get it either. I don't.
Jesus Christ.
Because, if it was kryptonite,
he would have been dead.
Taking his powers away as it is. So he shouldn't have been cradling that when he was already feeling like shit, should he?
Well, didn't he have nuclear...
So the Nuclear Man stuff, I was
Radiation?
led to believe that the issue was, Nuclear Man had scratched him and that was what was causing him problems. Lex Luthor's explanation of that didn't clear it up for me.
Thank you,
I mean, fuck, I needed, he gave me the cliff notes. I need the fucking full explanation, and even then I fall asleep halfway. I probably need 2 to 3 explanations of it, but what we got wasn't cutting it.
No.
So I just, again, assumed Nuclear Man's got some powers that are going to hurt Superman.
Well, I felt it was like
scratched him.
radiation.
Yeah, so he scratched him. He's fucked, but then he ends up with the kryptonite. What I thought was kryptonite.
Why are we cradling the kryptonite?
I don't know.
Is it
was
kryptonite?
it kryptonite? Well,
yes.
So
No, it can't be because he took it out and then nothing happened to him.
But it has to be because it's green, it's glowing. I mean, fuck. Adam, in the comics, the kryptonite it now comes in all different colors and all sorts of shit. But in that
universe,
Christopher Reeve universe,
it was green.
It's that to me. That's kryptonite. So just get away from it.
Yeah. Leave it there.
And also, I don't understand why he's aging and then we don't see any recovery process or...
Is that all cut out?
Did he fucking take the kryptonite to burn out the fucking radiation and then throw it away? And...
Did he take the kryptonite out just to destroy the vehicle that he came in as a child?
Why does he want to do that?
Because it disappears, because he's selling the farm. Jesus Christ.
Maybe.
He doesn't want the next owner to find a spaceship.
But how does that help him fucking battle Nuclear Man?
Fuck, I don't know.
We should stop talking about it. We're sounding stupid about a second.
Overall,
no, I thought he was holding it to like fucking counteract or burn out the effects of the radiation, so that he could then toss it away and be fresh as a daisy again.
So when you do that, you turn 70.
As far as I can tell, you put a bit of talcum powder in your hair. And
okay. Listen, let's stop talking about that. Other than to say,
we can only say that's undecipherable.
The explanation was nil.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Lex Luthor's the smartest man alive did not give me a sufficient explanation as to how that happened.
Well, I didn't even hear the explanation. That's the thing. Okay, the last things for me are the villains go away with a whimper. Basically, Nuclear Man just gets thrown down into a reactor.
Yeah.
Nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
Lenny
powers everything up. Brilliant.
Lenny gets dropped off at a boys' home.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and then Lex
I'd
just
have
gets
dropped him off at an acting coach.
or a fucking hairdresser.
sorry,
His
John.
hairdresser's shit.
Yeah, your acting was fine. I'd have dropped him off at the scriptwriter's house.
And then Lex has just dropped in the chain gang again.
Yes, yeah. Which was the best part of it because we get it, 10 seconds of Gene Hackman blowing up and telling him, fuck you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then the last thing for me is you just failed to wrap up any of the stuff with Lacey and Lois.
Yes, yeah. Yep.
Was there any information about Margot Kidder not wanting to be there?
Okay, well, let's...
Jesus Christ.
I'm going to consult the canon guide, Adam,
Yeah.
because there's a page here that kind of succinctly runs through what's in the 45 minutes that was cut.
Okay, hit me.
So, it helps flesh out the plot, things like Superman's response to the little boy's letter, number 1. We've spoken about that.
Yeah.
A King Kong, Fay Ray-like love connection between the Daily Planet publisher Lucy Warfield and Nuclear Man, which is supposed to explain why he goes after her before he fucking takes off to the moon.
Okay.
Luther's plot to sell nukes back to the disarmed superpowers.
That's interesting.
Yes, because that
Did he find the
basically
fucking...
ends up into 2 scenes, doesn't it?
Yeah, does he
Him
find
turning
the
up, and then
bag of nuclear weapons floating in space?
Possibly. I thought it landed on the sun. But he must have
Yeah,
fetched
that's right,
it. He must have fetched it beforehand. But yeah, that ends up in 2 scenes.
Okay.
It's him fucking, having that meeting, and then it's him behind the pile of cash telling him you're all fired and whatever. And
that would have helped.
the United States and the Soviet Union nearly blowing each other up when they mistake Nuclear Man for a missile, and some closure to the Clark-Lois-Lacey love triangle.
Okay.
So
that I could have done with that.
yes, and I can only assume that there's also a few extra scenes in the midst of that. Because
Yes.
we get that explanation about the column. Are you going to write the nighttime in Metropolis or whatever she calls it? And we're going to do it tonight. Where it's like basically, me and you are going on a date tonight.
Yeah.
So that was one of the scenes that I think that's the dance one where they get the first failed attempt at Nuclear Man that turns up and whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely needed more of that stuff.
We need that
Definitely needed
45
more.
minutes, Jared. We need that 45 minutes.
We've got to get on it. So I've still got a couple of extras.
Okay.
So you mentioned Lex cutting Superman's hair. I thought the idea of we're going to go to the fucking Superman museum and get something out of there. But that strand of hair is holding, what was it, 1,000 pounds?
Yeah.
He cuts it with something from he cuts it with a pair of fucking
pliers.
cutters from Bunnings. It's a secateurs, Adam.
They produce good shit at Bunnings. Like, well, yeah, I didn't think of that.
that kind of just...
I didn't think of it. I
Yeah.
was too busy going, well, this is a good idea.
How do we solve that? We don't have it hanging with 1,000 pounds, and we just have, here's a strand of Superman's hair. But then the scene kind of sucks because the whole thing hangs on, this is how strong Superman is. His hair can hold 1,000 pounds.
Yes.
But we'll just snip that one.
So,
Fucking
but
stupid.
wasn't it held in place by something else? 2 little rings?
He
Didn't
cut
they
the hair.
ring? I cut the hair. No.
I'm pretty sure he cut the hair.
Okay.
Well, you've just solved that scene.
Yeah.
Cut the ring.
Cut the ring. Cut the ring, Lex. Next time, cut the ring.
I'm pretty sure he cut the hair. So
Okay. Yeah.
That
Well,
was
either
that.
way, he got that piece of hair pretty fucking easily.
He got it pretty
and I
fucking
did
easily.
not really pay much
Well,
attention.
is that like, fuck, just watch the dailies and say, we've got to shoot that again. Gene, can you just cut the ring, not the hair?
Cut the ring. In fact, no, we don't even need you, Gene. We'll do inserts with my hands.
Because basically the scene we've set up, if you did that to the hair, those secateurs are going,
Yeah.
they're fucked.
Well,
they're not working
it's kind of
anymore,
like in Superman, Man of Steel, where they try and put a needle in his arm.
Yep.
And it goes and bends up
Correct.
because you can't get through that skin.
Yep. Oh, well, I mean, we've spoken about the effects, but Clark and Lois jumping off the balcony,
Rubbish.
just shocking.
At one point, he
It's
lets her
so
go, though,
bad.
and then fucking sits there and smiles as she flails her out of the air, almost dying.
But then it also brings around this case of we're just going to make up, we're going to make up powers for Superman.
Yeah.
You're going to kiss her and she's going to lose her memory.
Yeah, how'd that work?
Don't know.
Again,
I don't know.
something that
Superman,
we
just
were
extra
weren't
powers.
aware of.
Extra powers. You know,
He also was able to put the-
modern Superman, they've tightened those up a bit.
Yeah. But we're also able to put up the fucking Great Wall or whatever using laser beams.
So the laser vision they pretty much just changed the colour, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because usually it's heat vision. We're going to fucking blow something up or, we made it blue and that'll just quickly rebuild
Explain it, yeah.
It'll quickly rebuild the
just
Great
go
Wall
with
of China.
The blow and all the shit blows back.
So bad.
I don't know. At least, I guess, no
Well, that
grout.
would have made more sense. Like, it was... Either way, it didn't make sense, but that would have made more sense of moving that. So we got the explanation that was another thing that Cannon said. No, we don't have the budget for that, but we got a few reverse shots that you can whack in there. So yeah, that's a problem.
So we're putting out a major film in cinemas, and you're telling me that this is what we're going to do. We've got some reverse.
I mean, I don't want to be comic book guy, but that shouldn't have been in there.
No, cut that out.
That's a power that Superman doesn't.
Well, the Great
need.
Wall of China was shot in the fucking studio, so I guess
Exactly.
it doesn't really
That
matter.
was the Great Wall of England. That was a Great
Or
Wall of
our
a suburb
outside-
an hour outside London. I believe.
Outside London.
Fucking hell. And other than that, yeah, I think we've just kind of mentioned, like, for me, it was about, like, it was sort of about the 40-minute mark where we just, it was well screwed earlier than then, but the 40-minute mark was where it became very apparent that the things had just started to be cut out and dropped left and right.
Yeah, agreed.
It was
Because nothing sort of connected up.
Yeah.
It felt like
the plot
just
points
these
are just starting to be abandoned.
sequences of just shit jammed in there. So
We get Lex Luthor being broken out, and then his scheme. He disappears for a while, then he comes back in. We get the scene of him with the other bad guys, and then him and John Cryer in the lab.
Yeah.
We go straight to the gym scene, and it's just like it starts to become very apparent that we're missing some shit here.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of
we
it.
need those 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But that is Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. You can find us on iTunes, Podomatic, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia. We're on Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. And we're also on Instagram at thrillmepodcastau. Keep an eye on our Facebook page to see what the next film is that we cover. But until then, take it easy, everyone, and we'll catch you all later. Cheers. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.